Zookeepers, what's up? Good morning. Wake up and get some coffee, unless you're listening to this at evening or night, in which case, how is your coffee? Would you like another cup?
Always.
Today, again, we are joined by the lovely Shalane, my beautiful wife. Just want to basically jump right in here. We've got very little housekeeping as we took quite the hiatus. So, basically, thank you again to the sponsor of this season, BetterHelp Online Therapy. World's largest 100% online therapy service. Get matched with your vetted and fully licensed therapist. You can text, video chat, or talk on the phone, whatever you want. Best of all, there's no appointment needed, so please go and check them out for incredibly affordable and fantastic therapy. And find them at betterhelp.com/The Feenstra Zoo. But enough housekeeping. Let's get to the good stuff. If you're anything like me, and I'm willing to bet you are in this instance, you have more than likely messed up and done something stupid in your past. I know I have. Maybe you've hurt your partner or your family. Maybe you've broken the law. Maybe you've broken yourself. Maybe you're just disappointed with how your life has ended up. Whatever it is, don't worry. I'm not taking an Instagram poll. You don't have to raise your hand. Simply making the point that we are all imperfect creatures. Don't believe me? Check out the Bible. There's some great stuff in there. See Romans 3, verse 23. Basically, the point that I want to make today is that we don't need to be eternally weighed down by our past failings or shortcomings. Or put another way, there is a distinct difference between guilt and shame.
Ooh.
Yeah. To lay it out pretty black and white here, guilt is the understanding that you've done something wrong and you've made a bad choice. Shame is believing that what we are is wrong. Guilt says that I should not have done that. I recognize that I did that. But shame is basically saying that I'm unable to be loved or accepted or to overcome what I have done. Guilt and shame come from completely different spirits. See, the first guilt comes from a place of correction and knowledge. As a parent, I have had the honor and responsibility of teaching my daughters how to be good people. And I don't always get it right on either side of the equation. But when the girls mess up, lately, as of writing this, it was stealing treats or hiding things in their beds for after they've gone to bed. And Shalane and I have to look for two things when we confront the girls. One, their honesty and remorse or guilt for their actions, and how much of either of these things the girls show will directly reflect on what type of consequence that we deal out. This is what I mean by knowledge and correction. Even though that wrong has been done, I want my girls to understand that what they did is wrong and why they did it. But at the end of it all, I just want more than anything for my girls to know that they're loved by Shalane and I, and know that they're forgiven and that we can move forward. Nothing to worry about for past mistakes once the situation is dealt with.
Yes, exactly.
On the flip side of this, there's also the spirit of shame. Okay, it's a painful feeling of regret, self-hate, dishonor. It's oppressive and indicative of depression. It is that unshakable voice in your head saying that I'm not good enough. Constantly reminding you of your faults, constantly reminding you of your shortcomings. It's the inability to move forward with your life because shame keeps you stuck in the past. It puts on your shoulders that you might as well be Atlas, carrying the world on your back. It's unbearable and it's unsustainable. No one can carry this spirit with them and stay sane. It's an unwanted addiction that has never given us anything but pain. By holding on to the shame and not moving forward, it's honestly, it's like a slow suicide. But as adults, it can be incredibly difficult to move forward from a place of shame to a place of guilt, and then from guilt to freedom. How can we do that? A simple word, but can be incredibly painful and difficult concept, is to forgive yourself. Forgiveness is basically magic. It will allow all sorts of amazing things in your life, including but not limited to freedom. Freedom of the spirit, of the mind, freedom of self-doubt, freedom from self-hate. It would be great to wake up in the morning and be content with the person you are. Not because you're perfect, but because you have learned from your mistakes. You've forgiven yourself from anything from the past. Look, none of us are perfect. All of us struggle with personal doubt. And we all see ourselves in the worst lights because we know the things we've done in our past. We have no secrets from ourselves. But we don't do ourselves any favors by holding on to those dark secrets or our perceived failures. Doing that only causes ourselves to doubt who we are, and it robs us of our joy from today. Think of it this way. There's two big boxes. Fill one with all the negative emotions and bad memories and things that you hold against yourself. Fill the second box with joy, forgiveness, good emotions, and positive attitude. Here's the problem. Both of these boxes are big. You can only pick up one at a time. What we need is to make the conscious decision to pick up the right box. See, what we give our attention to, that's who you're going to become. If you focus on being a negative, self-hating, miserable person, guess what? You're not going to be headlining a comedy tour anytime soon. But luckily, this principle works both ways. It won't happen overnight, but if you actively choose to be an easy and happy person, you choose to learn from your mistakes instead of holding on to them, you choose daily to be a person of peace, eventually, you'll be that person of peace. If you choose to free yourself from your chains, from your judgment, slowly but surely, you'll become the person that you are meant to be. Now, we had a conversation a while ago, Shalane and I, about this weird concept that I don't quite understand.
Uh-oh.
And I think it fits into this topic. Actually, I think you and Chris were talking about it when she was out here. That's what started it. Was mom guilt. How, you don't feel like you're doing everything you can when you take personal time during the day.
That's a normal topic of conversation between us, yes.
Now, how does that fit into this concept? Does it fit into guilt, or is it just perceived slight, or is it are you feeling shame for yourself? I don't understand this being a dad.
No, it's not. It doesn't fall under shame. And I don't think, at least in our dynamic of our relationship, that you would experience it because you are the fun parent. Which is probably why when you heard us talk about it, it makes sense too, because that's something that
I just don't
she
get
has
it.
to be. She has to be both parents, right? So essentially, mom guilt is we are really good at giving everyone or wanting everyone to have everything they could possibly want. It doesn't matter what it is. If we can get it or do it or give it, we want to. And then some. So for us to, there's always like the memes and that kind of thing where, we'll buy our kids like $80 of pairs of shoes and we haven't bought like new underwear or new socks in 8 years. That's like the prime, like that's it. We will spend the money, we will do the things, we will stay up late creating whatever needs to be created, or 8 hours on birthday cakes and all of these things.
8 hours, that's a quick one for me.
But if you were to say, why don't you go take your book and go buy a coffee and go take an hour out of the house to do whatever you want to do, but don't think about anyone or anything but yourself. Could you do it?
Could you do it?
No. As a mom, I think we were programmed as like the caregivers, right?
Right.
So you go get coffee and it's like, well, is this money we should be spending? I have permission to spend this money. Not that you need permission, but like someone has told me or given me this money,
For
it could go
coffee.
somewhere else.
Right.
Someone can give you that. Someone can give you that money and say, this is what you need to go and spend it on. And immediately your brain goes to, well, that money could have gone somewhere else. That hour and that time could have gone to or for someone else. And on top of that, so then you're like, oh, well, I'll go even just window shopping, right? That doesn't cost anything. Doesn't matter if you have $1 million in the bank, right? Like this has nothing to do with like being on a budget, and have everything to do with the fact that moms feel guilty when we do things for ourselves.
So it's kind of in this weird gray area between the two. Now, from dad brain, I still have such a hard time grasping this concept. Because, like you said, one, I more often than not get to be the fun parent.
Mm-hmm.
I work out of the house, so I'm used to, especially with my job, I have so much isolation time. Like, I'm always by myself. So for me, it's so hard to understand where you're coming from, because I'm like, yeah, here's $10, go get a Starbucks and go hit the bookstore for an hour, go find a beach and read. Like, just go. I got the kids, just go. So for you to say that you'll do it, but it's almost like it's begrudging and you're constantly thinking that this time and energy and money can go somewhere else, I'm just like, man, no, just go.
It's kind of maybe the easiest, or not easiest, but like the closest that you could ever be to it would be when we went on our trip, just the two of us.
Right.
And we had no communication with our kids.
Yeah.
How it took some time and it took some getting used to not wanting to share or think or even feel a little bit guilty with the fact that we were experiencing this and they were not experiencing it with us.
Right. No, I totally get that, because I
It's like
definitely
that.
got that.
And it takes some time And then we were, not that we forgot about them, but
we were okay experiencing Alaska without them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So much so that we're going to go do it again.
Yeah, we are.
But it's kind of like that.
On a grand scale.
But you get it over everything.
Right. Okay, so I grasped that concept because I definitely felt like, especially the first few days of that trip, where I was like, no, like I want to like FaceTime my girls and show them all this cool stuff.
We wanted to call them. We wanted to share with them. We wanted to
show them our food because it was so nice.
And Tinsley's totally turning into a foodie, so she would have loved it.
Yeah, she would.
But it's not necessarily that we wanted them with us.
No. But it's the want to share experience.
But the want to share experience and the feeling like someone important to us is being left out and they didn't have to be.
Right.
So like I can go and I can take that time and I can realize at that time, especially there are times where I need that time and it's okay. But yeah, that's the closest I can probably give for you to understand how that feeling is.
Right. Now, I wrote the tone of this episode on a completely different scale. So
and then I came along.
So to bring it back to my original theme here.
Is mom guilt is different.
Mom guilt is totally different. But like, let's bring it back to the line here. What you focus on, you're going to become. Okay, so with that in mind, like what is your take on? It's not manifestation, but it's your, like, if you focus on being a good person, you'll be a good person. If you focus on being Debbie Downer, you're not going to have many friends.
It's it's no different than when Tinsley's works herself up into a tizzy and she gets sent to have some time to change her attitude and she tells me she doesn't know how to. And my reply is normally, this isn't necessarily something that I can teach you. It's something that you need to make the choice to do and then do it.
Right.
Now, that could be a lot of big words to an 8-year-old, but essentially, I can't show you how to change your attitude. At some point, everyone comes to where you just have to start doing it.
Yeah, you do it or you stay stuck in your hole.
And I believe that that's true, and I believe that on the opposite scale, sometimes you need to feel some really hard feelings, and that's also acceptable, 100%.
Oh yeah, no, like none of this is for me to say that.
No. I wasn't accusing that way, but it's like it's okay to, in your boxes analogy, if sometimes you want to pick up that really heavy dark box for a little bit and just wallow in it for a second, that's okay too.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to discount that. Like, sometimes you just gotta feel what you feel.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that... You can't know light without dark.
Exactly.
You can't know the highest of highs without experiencing lows.
And you can't just... And I think, like, it's really easy to just be like, choose joy. And as everyone knows, I am, like, the first person to tick off a whole room of people who want to be stuck in their dark boxes. Because I am a very positive person. And I don't always have the patience, I think is the best way to put it. When it comes to not positive things.
Yes, you are the inevitable ray of sunshine to the rest of us who have the rest of the range of emotions.
It's not uncommon for multiple people in my life to be like, that's nice, Shalane, but sometimes I just don't want your joy. But
guilty.
You're not the only one, though. But it's one of those things where, like, even those snippets, and you're right in choosing, and the more often you choose it, those little gaps that you're choosing joy become bigger and become bigger and become bigger.
It becomes easier to make that choice.
Yeah, and that gapping is between those having to make that choices becomes longer. Now, I'm not saying everyone can be as joyful and positive as I am all the time. For the record, I can be a real downer sometimes, guys.
Yeah, but like I said, you can't know one without the other.
Yeah.
You don't know what joy is unless you've experienced some type of pain in your life. Because there's no comparison to it. There's no juxtaposition to be like, no, this is just normal. Or is this like truly a high, right? If I was just a happy person and knew nothing but happiness and joy and easy and whatever, it would almost be meaningless.
Be your baseline.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can't know what true joy feels like without having experienced something that is not that. Right? Like you can't know what happiness is if that's just your normal.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Then it's just there. I guess I really do just need to double back on the fact that you can be whatever type of person you want to be. If you're normal, if where you feel yourself to be true is just, generally a melancholy person, that's okay. But what this all is to say is that you don't have to be held back by your past. You don't have to feel shame from your past, your decisions you made 15 years ago. They don't have to define you today.
Exactly. And I think that's where therapy comes in.
Seriously, betterhelp.com/The Feenster Zoo.
Because I feel like unless you have a positive, maybe positive isn't the right word. I'm going to use it anyway. Unless you have a positive sounding board to work through any of that. And it doesn't even have to be something that you think needs to be worked on. But you can't... Those are the types of things that you can't work on by yourself.
Yeah.
And there is a line that can be crossed even with working on those types of things, like just with your spouse.
Yeah. Sometimes you need a third party.
Yeah.
Something we've talked about in the past, though, too, is that, like, if you're saying that you're working on something from your past, but you're not doing anything but, like, trying to give it time to go away, that's not working on yourself. That's not working on whatever XYZ issue, non-issue, whatever. That's just ignoring it and bottling it up.
And it's going to come back.
At some point, that's going to come back and bite you.
Yep. Usually multiple times, and it'll be triggered by something very small.
Yeah. So I know they're a sponsor, and this is not actually where I intended this to go, but if you need someone to talk to, BetterHelp Online Therapy is so affordable and so readily available. Like I said at the intro, you can talk, you can text, you can video chat, whatever you want to do, however that looks for you, please try it. If you need someone to talk to, try it. or find a close friend or someone you trust, a spouse. But remember, there is a point that that line is crossed.
There is. Like, we've had this conversation.
Absolutely, we have. There's, at some point, yes, your spouse needs to be in the know.
Oh, 100%.
They need to know what's going on.
But it's not your position to call me out or to hold me accountable on some things when it's like working through something.
Yeah. Now, never lie to your spouse. Never put up that wall. At some point, they should know what you're working through, but it doesn't always have to be them first. There are some traumas that should be worked out with a professional before you take that to, maybe not before you take that to your spouse, but during. I know that there's a line, is all I'm trying to say.
There's a weird gray line there.
There's a weird gray line, and I'm sure there's something that I'm not thinking about, and by all means, call me out on it if you think differently. The Feenstra Zoo Facebook group, Instagram, wherever, call me out on it. If I'm wrong, I will put out a whole new episode about why I'm wrong. But please, I don't want to mislead or guide someone down the wrong path, and I am no professional by any means. But long story, long rant short, talk to someone.
And that's the thing, is it just needs to start with someone that you trust. And I think that's where, like, you and I come into, you know, a spouse is a great way, but sometimes that's
not always the best way.
Not always the best way. And I constantly, I have this, like, memory, I don't know if it's of someone telling me or reading, back when I was a teenager, about, well, basic relationships. Essentially saying, you know, it's one thing, and we've talked about like this before, how it's like completely unacceptable. This is a black zone, right? You do not trash talk or bring your fights out, like, with your spouse or with your partner to someone else, right? That's where it crosses. So in this more teeny bopper terminology, it's like it's crossing into the gossip, right? However, it is okay to have one person, and it always be the same one person that you trust outside of said relationship, to be a confidant. And I always remember that as being like, you know, that's where it's like, it's acceptable. You have someone to trust. It's okay to talk to someone outside of that relationship. That is okay. And I'm not saying that in just a, you know, when, you know, there's whatever issues or whatever in the relationship. I'm just saying, like, in general, it is okay to have someone random that's just, that you trust, that's part of your friend circle or not part of your friend circle. Pick whatever colored circle you want. Pick someone. Talk to them.
It's the houseless guy on the corner who I talk to on the way to work, you know. It's
No, I don't know. But I do, and I have that memory from, like, I don't know, I was probably like 16, 17. If it was not before my first relationship, it was like just into it. So I think I probably read a book that was saying that. And it's just been one of those things that's always stuck with me, where it's like, it's okay as long as it's that one same person that you know, that you trust, to be your sounding board.
Yeah, and I agree with that. Like, you're always my number one. That's easy. Okay? But
we have an anomaly relationship.
We do. But I do have my best friend who I can talk to about any and everything. And what I love about him is he will call me on my crap. If I'm in the wrong, I'd be like, hey, you know, this is bugging me. Like, I just needed to, whatever, get this off my chest. And he'll let me do it. And in a loving way, he's going to be like, Spencer, you're wrong.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, well, dang it, let me call my mom. But but no, like, I trust him implicitly, and He's always been there. I've known him since I was in like grade 5, grade 6. Like, he's known me through all of my hooliganism and through all of everything, and he was there for our wedding, and he's been part of our lives in our married life for the past 9 years. So he knows the ins and outs of our relationship.
Mm-hmm. But it doesn't have to be someone like that either.
It doesn't have to be, but that's the easiest place for it.
Yes, 100%.
Someone who knows you inside and out because you tell them pretty much everything.
Yep. It's okay to have a safe space.
Yeah.
And I think, like, women especially, like, I process things
Externally. Yeah.
So
I will sit in a dark room and brood for however long it takes me to run through every possible scenario and every possible whatever, whereas you need someone to talk to, and we'll get the same job done, but in very different ways.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But it really boils down to the same points. I mean, we can be wrong, we can be right, whatever, but like, guilt and shame are part of this.
Oh yeah.
I made mistakes in my past that I felt shame for years. And until, I learned how to process things healthily as an adult, through friend circles, through therapy, through whatever, I was able to work those from shame to guilt. From guilt, you take that knowledge and that conviction, you learn from it, and as a whole, I'm a pretty free person.
Mm-hmm.
It's everything that we've been talking about. It really boils down to those same points. There is freedom from oppression, and no one is judging you harder than yourself.
Oh, for sure.
So, pick up your happy box.
Grab a coffee. Don't feel guilty.
Right? Grab a Starbucks. Go for a walk. Go do some window shopping. Go to a bookstore. Find a beach somewhere. I recommend the west coast of Canada. And
learn to forgive.
Yeah, learn to forgive yourself. Life will get better. I think that's where we sign off.
Okay.
Any closing thoughts?
Mm-mm.
Awesome. Again, thank you guys for taking this time to spend with us. So appreciate that you've given me some of your valuable time. Again, if you've got any thoughts on any of this or topics you want us to cover, just like last episode, that was a topic that was given to me by a coworker. But throw them at me either at the Facebook group or at The Feenstra Zoo on Facebook, or The Feenstra Zoo on Instagram, Twitter. I'm pretty much everywhere. Feel free to give me a shout. Let me know what you're thinking. But for now, thank you again. We love you guys. God bless.